This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society.
Aloha, y'all. This is Daniel Eisenman, the host of the Breaking Normal podcast, where my guests are all invited based on the frequency of synchronicity and all trailblazers in the breaking of all things normal.
Aloha, y'all. Y'all ready for this next episode? Ayla Niero. I trust I said that correctly. She's awesome. She's amazing. The interview is so good, so solid. Let the children lead. If you want to get an official bio from her, Google her name. There's plenty out there. There's some good articles on her. She's amazing. As a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Tribe Vitamins. Come on. I got the news a doctor bought 100 bottles of bison liver and 100 bottles of elk liver today. Why would a doctor do that? Interesting, huh? Check out the reviews. They're awesome. I was tempted to read one, but I just want to jump right into the interview with Ayla. It's so good. It's so soft. It's so cool. A lot like her music. Enjoy, y'all. Keep breaking normal. Well, welcome to the show, Ayla Niero.
Thank you.
What an honor.
Can I?
Oh, yeah. Let's restart. Tell me.
It's Ayla Nerio.
Oh, I really mispronounced that. Ayla Niero. Is that right?
Nerio, but
Nerio. Ayla Nerio. Ayla Nerio. I'm practicing saying the name of the new guest that is here now with us. Ayla Nerio. Is that correct? Did I say that right? Where did that name come from? Is that your birth name? I do have a little synchronicity to share about that. Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, my parents chose it. Well, the Nerio part is my dad's family's name from Italy, and Ayla was a name that they found I think they found it in a Hebrew baby name book, but it's also Turkish. It has a bunch of different translations. Yeah.
Well, on the schedule of synchronicity, and that is the podcast schedule here. Yesterday, I was thinking about messaging. I had such a busy week, and I know we've been playing podcast tag for a while, but I'm really happy to drop in with you now, and this feels best. I was about to message you yesterday just to see if you maybe wanted to reschedule. Oh. And then right when I was about to message you, I look up and I see a card in front of me and it says ALA. Those are the first three letters. And I was like, interesting. And that wasn't, I was kind of reaching there. But this morning I was about to message you again just to see how you're feeling and everything. And then before I do, I see a message from a lady that's messaging me about her daughter named Ayla, spelled the same way as yours. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this today. So I'm happy to be here with you.
Oh, I'm happy too. Yeah. And we shifted the hour. That was better for me. So
perfect. Where are you currently?
I live in the mountains of kind of northeastern California, the foothills of the Sierra mountain ridge. Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah. How is the
dry
smoke right now? It's been pretty hazy even in Colorado from those fires. I think up there, there's a few different theories between fracking, all the people that are moving here and all the fires. This could be a new normal of sorts. How's it over there?
We're definitely sitting with that potential reality. It's not too smoky today, luckily. We have interesting weather here where sometimes normally we do get actually a lot of pollution from the Central Valley up in these hills. But as far as smoke goes, we sometimes get lucky. There's a huge fire north of us, the Dixie Fire. And so we've had some smoky days, but so far have been lucky to have a lot of blue sky. But it's intense. I'm actually after this podcast, I'm going to go water some of the grown cedar trees on our land because they're just not getting the water they need. And it's an intense moment for sure.
Well, it sounds like you are pretty good at maybe keeping secluded potentially compared to the normal average folk. And I am kind of curious, I think it's on a lot of people's minds and hearts these days because all the news just keeps telling everyone contradicting things every other week or whatever it is these days.
Yeah. I'm
just curious how important that solitude is to you, and what are you doing to navigate the waters of the current chaos of culture these days? Because I know this is our first time meeting, but I've listened to your music for years, and I think you're an amazing artist, really a genius. Your voice is amazing, and it's obviously you're tapped into something where I think you're living inside out rather than outside in.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I was just curious about your perspectives with what's going on, how that might be affecting your music and such.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that question. I love what you just said, the inside out rather than outside in. I think that kind of summarizes it actually is I noticed that I'm like everyone, we're very influenced by each other. And when I tune so much externally, especially to media, whether that's news or social media or people, um, it's important to stay informed of like what's going on, particularly with our planet right now and climate. But if I tune so much into that, like every day, then I'm in a way living outward in, and it really destabilizes my center, and I stop being able to hear the inner guidance system, because there's so much in my mind, because the mind gets aggravated, and as we can see very clearly, mainstream media and all media really, I mean, not all, but a lot of media, it's made to get people to watch it more, and to get people to watch it more, it kind of hooks us with things like fear or strong emotions, and so then we get kind of emotionally worked up, and so I find that when I'm in that state, it's like a tense, heightened emotional or fear or stress state, and I just can't tune into the more subtle messaging that's coming through, that's just naturally comes through all of our systems, our minds, and especially our intuition and our hearts. And so my inside out living, the seclusion, which is not so secluded, I live with people, but I am kind of a hermit, and I'm a better human when I am living slower and listening to the pace of nature and listening to the subtle messages that come through the elements and nature and my own internal guidance system of my intuition. And so that's kind of what I go off of. It's like, am I showing up as a good human, and leading with my heart in my day-to-day interactions? And I just noticed that all of that gets destabilized when I spend too much time on screens, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that your answer would be something like that. Just once again, based on your ability to create, like you've been continuously creating. It seems throughout these last few years, and I know that your new song "Breathe" came out, which is awesome. And I'll when in the intro, I'll talk probably more about some of your music accolades. But I was reading a little bit of an article about you on the Huffington Post, and that may have been where I was a little biased towards thinking that you might spend a good bit of time secluded in nature, and that you were homeschooled. Were you homeschooled in Northern California?
I was lucky.
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, all throughout high school. Wow. Yeah. So
not through high school. I decided, I got curious and I chose to go to high school, public high school, which was a whole shift and experience, and it worked me. It wasn't all positive. It wasn't very positive, but it grew me in ways that I have no regrets about. But yeah, I homeschooled up until then.
And was that your parents' kind of perspective for you, that you could decide to go to public school when you wanted to, or were they against that? Or
oh no, they
curious
totally,
about that.
Yeah, they kept it wide open. They actually only intended to homeschool me for first grade, because I went to a Waldorf kindergarten, and they didn't particularly like the first grade teacher. So they just decided, well, it's first grade, we'll just homeschool you for first grade. And then at the end, I have a vague memory of them asking me. I actually kind of remember the moment of them being like, do you want to go to school? And I was like, no, can I keep doing this? And so then they just decided to homeschool my brother and I. And we were just so happy. We were just so happy to have our education be something that some people call the style of homeschooling that we did unschooling, because it's not through any system. We weren't even enrolled in any kind of school system. And we, our learning was, of course, we had like curriculums that we were keeping up with to make sure we were on top of our age group learning. But we devoured books, and our learning was very driven by our interests. And so So yeah, we had no desire to go to school until 8th grade. I basically got really curious when I started hitting puberty and just, wanting to be with my peers. And luckily my mom advised me to start in high school and not 8th grade. So I got to avoid middle school.
Yeah, I think I remember 8th grade and 9th grade being some of the rougher school years
rough
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a daughter that's 4 now. I'm not sure if you've seen her, the Ohm baby. There's a video of me ohming her to sleep, like from screaming to sleeping in 40 seconds, and it's gone ultra viral. But that's
I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun one. She's a special one, and she hasn't been really indoctrinated into any normal systems. Like I don't even think she has a clue of what's going on, why like so many kids are wearing masks and such.
Yeah.
We don't have a TV at our house. But I am, like last year we let her go to an all outdoor kindergarten school. So they're out beside all day from like 8 to 3:30 p.m. in Boulder, which can be intense.
Yeah.
But she loves it. She loves it. And there's really not much of a curriculum. And this is something I'm very fascinated by. I hosted retreats for 10 to 11 years. And a lot of what we were doing at those retreats were basically helping people unlearn things they did at school. They were kind of like get undomesticated and go back to that, like living inside out or being addicted to authenticity rather than approval. Totally. Because it does seem like a lot of the normal public school systems that especially these days, it looks sort of like a domestication or like a farm of sorts.
Totally. Well, it's modeled off of the Industrial Revolution, which is like one size fits all and separate by age and all the psychology research, which is what I then went into studying when I did my undergrad work, the psychology of education. So all of those studies show like different age groups working together is most effective, and children picking their own, like having some ability to choose in schooling, like in whatever they learn, is most effective. And none of those things are applied because it's a very old, outdated system. So I think right on. That's awesome. How lucky is your daughter to have a dad like you?
Well, and I'm starting, now we get to make a decision for the upcoming school. And that's just for, I think up to like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
So it's a big topic. And it's not only is it a big topic for me, but I can't tell you how many parents are just having negative interest of getting their kids into the public school systems these days.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot. It's a lot for people to wrap their minds around. And I just think it's, I wasn't necessarily planning on talking about education with you, but if you have any more perspectives to share for someone like me, and I know a lot of people that are in my situation, maybe they're hesitant, like their kids will miss out on something if they don't go to public school. I'm imagining your parents and you and your brother. Do you have one sibling?
I have one. I have actually 2 older half siblings, but my brother and I are really close, and we just kind of went through the whole thing together.
Yeah, I guess if you want to expound upon that, and
sure,
I'd love to hear it, because I have a feeling there's a lot of my friends that are actually parents. They're kind of probably paying extra close attention to this part.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I mean, I love talking about this. And it's actually a side project I have, is pulling together a website to offer more resources, because I'm starting to realize like, wow, I really had a unique experience being able to do all of this and then study it. And so, one of the biggest things that I come to is for parents, because I think a lot of parents are worried like, oh, is my kid going to learn the right things? And that's it's an ingrained thought from the school system, because the school system's basically modeled on the idea that at this age you need to learn this, at this age you need to learn this, And so 2 things about that. One is that it's good to think about like, what do you remember from 2nd grade? What do you remember from 4th grade? Like, what things actually went into your system? Was it content or was it an experience? Was it like details about history in 5th grade, or was it that time that the teacher like let everyone turn the desks upside down and you reenacted something and you don't even remember what you reenacted, but it was like this really invigorating experience? I think this is just where I come from, but our learning was so directed by what our passion was. And this is a whole philosophy around education, is to let the children lead and to trust that they will learn what they need to learn for their lives. So it's really trusting the unfoldment of our soul's journey in a way. And the parents don't have to be teachers. They don't have to know everything. They get to be guides and to help guide the children to find to be their own teachers, essentially. And when the passion is guiding, and when the child is really encouraged, like, oh, you are curious about what's going on in the garden. Let's get in there. Here, how about you have this area? This is just your zone. Like, let's go out every day. Let's do science experiments and learn about seeds, and let's count. Let's do some math counting, like how many seeds, if you take away seeds, like there's so many ways to incorporate all of the areas of learning into a topic. It's a theory of thematic learning. So if your child's obsessed with horses, you incorporate reading, writing, math, like all of it gets incorporated into the study of horses. So then you're really letting them just flow with their passion, with what they want to learn about. But also at younger ages, it's just not so important for them to like know all these facts. It gets more important as you get older, but I know this is where I get kind of radical. I feel like, when you're in high school, high schoolers are really tuned into peers and really tuned into interpersonal relations. And what a great time to teach kids how to relate as humans to each other. What a great time to teach kids how to have skills to learn how to be an adult. This is more of a traditional model, like in villages, where it's like actually learn how to be a good human, like how to actually be in the world. And we're kind of mentally focused in this culture. So we're really concerned with kids being like kind of specializing or like getting really good at, like it's important to read and write for sure, and to be able to do basic math, but beyond that, it's good to just ask ourselves, like, okay, what kind of how do I want to help this little being be a genius, be their own genius? Everyone's a genius. Everyone has genius in them. And how do I want to facilitate this child, this little human, to find that in themselves? And it might be kind of like my parents did, kind of breaking from all the norms of what we've been told, quote unquote, education is. And actually, there's a quote that I love that's, oh gosh, I'm blanking on who said it. Yeats, maybe? I can't remember who said it, but it's education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And so it's like that idea of like, we're not trying to dump information into our kids. We're just trying to get them to ignite their passion and explore and learn and be curious and wonder about the world and learn how to find answers for themselves. That's my philosophy.
Well, it's a beautiful one. I definitely wrote down, let the children lead.
Yeah.
That's how I see my daughter. I see her as basically helping me, like inspiring me to guide her to her genius.
Mm-hmm.
Like rather than what you're saying, rather than the normal culture around that. So I think it's super beautiful. Almost got a little teary eyed. I think that's pretty easy when I'm talking about Davina.
Yeah. And it takes pressure. I think a lot of parents are like, oh, I'm not a teacher. How could I homeschool my child? And it's like, no, you don't need to be a teacher. You get to just let the child be the teacher and really help them. Like, oh, I don't know the answer to that. How are we going to figure out the answer? And then they're like, oh, okay. And they learn how to research. They learn how to go to the library and look up answers. And yeah. And then you basically get to be along for this amazing ride of like, whoa, like I think it inherently inspires wonder in the parent too.
And then for this journey that you were blessed enough to go on and kind of let curiosity lead your way rather than curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
When did you know that you wanted to sing? Did that happen early, or where did that blossom?
It's funny. When I track back, I actually kind of forgot until not too long ago, but I made music growing up. I would write songs on the piano. I loved music. I would dance. I would, I had all these visions. I loved movie making. It was like all these things that I do now. Like I was doing them all as a child. But I had this weird fear of singing. I think because a friend of mine was tone deaf, and I got this irrational fear that maybe I was tone deaf and no one was telling me. It was very strange, but I think it was probably also some kind of, and there's a lot of ancestral and like cultural, social imprints that are in our kind of our DNA and cellular memory of like the shutdown of the voice and the shutdown of confidence. And so I think I was just in my own place with all of that. So it kept me from singing for a long time until college, actually. And then I started learning guitar, and I basically started writing songs, not trying to. I was listening to a lot of Dylan, and I just really wanted to write words, and I had to sing them. Like, it was basically words were coming through and I had to sing them. So I was a closet singer for a little while, but then the people I was living with basically pulled me out of my shell and kept asking me to sing songs. And so I just sang more and more, and it was terrifying for years, and I hated performing. And at a certain point I decided that I didn't hate it, but it was so stressful. I was so nervous. And at a certain point I decided I probably am just a recording artist. Like, it was that uncomfortable to perform. And then I just kept doing it, and the layers just come off, and they come off the more we do something. And so yeah, it's a little of the singing journey.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
yeah, I didn't know. If you told me in high school that I was going to become a professional musician, I would have been like, don't tease me. That's ridiculous.
well, from that to I guess it was June a couple of years ago when I was like sprinting through the Red Rocks, running late. I think I got to catch the last part of your last song before Trevor Hall and Naka Bear came on. So, I mean, what an evolution! I find that so fascinating that you knew you were interested as a kid, you were doing it as a kid, and then you became scared of it.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of people could follow that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you do as a child that you became scared of as an adult?
I think we just watch everything around us. And, I think there's especially in the women in my life, like my models growing up, my, either parents or older siblings, like I've noticed and just other people in general, like there's such a strong tendency to not actually embrace who we are fully, and to kind of apologize or shut down or or literally say things like, oh, don't listen to me, my voice is no good, things like that. And as a child, you hear that stuff, and it makes you wonder, like, well, does that mean some voices are good and some aren't? And like that thought forms. And so I think it's probably an accumulation of that, plus really old trauma that we haven't healed yet collectively around the shutdown of people, and women especially, for being powerful, like the whole, the massacres of women that happened in the Middle Ages, and just there's a lot of history that we haven't fully, that we're in a healing process with. And so we sort of, all of that lives inside us. And so it's, I guess, part of our journey to remember ourselves and to learn how to just breathe through it and lean through it and keep singing, even though it scares us. Yeah.
Yep. Once again, it's like very personal for me. And that's one thing that, because Davina, my daughter, I'm like, she loves to sing and loves to dance. And I trust I've only supported it, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. And I actually think she's a beautiful dancer and singer and performer. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day y'all share a stage. Who knows? But I am also curious, was there like a breakthrough moment? And I asked that based on another synchronicity that just popped up. JP Sears just texted me. He was the very first Breaking Normal podcast guest. I haven't listened to what he said, but I was there for what I would say was his breakthrough performance. I remember we were in Kauai at an event, and he was going to do his very first comedy show. And I was like publicly, and I was sort of in charge of the event. And he was very concerned if he was going to offend people. And I just made sure that he please offend us, offend all of us if you can. And he did. I was quite offended on some of the jokes, but I knew I saw something. I was like, okay, genius unleashed. And sure enough, here we are. I don't know if you know JP, but he is
I laugh a lot at what he creates. I think, he's got a bravery there of just like saying what he believes. And I appreciate that in anyone. I mean, as long as it's not harming people, and especially the way he makes people laugh at themselves. Like, it's good to laugh at ourselves. It's good to laugh at the hilarity and the ridiculousness of how seriously we take ourselves sometimes.
Yep, I agree. It's almost like seriousness almost starts to seem sinful in some ways. But I am curious, did you have a moment like that, like where you overcame that fear? Like you're just like, F it, I'm just going to sing in front of this crowd, or were you at a retreat, or did it just like slowly, and then still kind of unfurling in a way?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's still unfurling always, but I would say there were two moments come to mind. And one is a longer moment that I actually did a training in EFT, which is it's emotional freedom technique. It's tapping, and it's a system that uses the basically the meridian system of what is acupuncture is based on, but it's acupressure, and you're tapping on the meridian system point in the body, certain points. And at the same time, you are going through either memories or current feelings and thoughts, and you are it's so simple, but basically you are accepting yourself. It's so simple and so profound. And you just accept, and the acceptance makes space that just kind of dissipates things. And I did a 2-month study of that training, and I encountered some pretty deep fears of being killed for having a voice. I don't know if it's past life. I don't know if it's ancestral. I don't know what it is, but it was a really, really deep fear of being heard and being killed for speaking my truth, which is, you see that in history, you see it even present day, and so working through that, very shortly after completing that training, I found myself sharing music, but feeling differently about it. And then about 6 months later, I did my first solo tour up the Northwest coast, up to Canada and back down. And somewhere up in Vancouver-ish, somewhere in Washington or Vancouver, I remember having a walk in the woods and having this moment that it felt like the universe was talking to me. And the universe said, in a way, you can either go back to Oakland and keep doing side jobs to pay for your expensive rent, or you can just commit, because this is why you're on the planet. You're here to do this. So are you going to dilly-dally, or are you going to commit? And it was just a choice. And there was no should. And I just decided to commit. And I applied to an artist residency, and I got it. And it gave me 2 months to create art. And I created a GoFundMe to fund my next album. And then that happened. And every step then, all the synchronicities followed from that choice. And I just said yes to them over and over, and with that commitment. So I would say those are two pretty big pieces of the journey.
That's pretty amazing to hear about the both experiences, but the Vancouver one, were you like walking in the woods, or were you by yourself, or what was that?
I was touring with a friend of mine, Michael Zelligs, who's an amazing musician as well. And we were, I think we just went, we had a habit of taking hikes before that evening's show. And I think we were just out hiking, but I was definitely having a solo moment, because I must have been, because it was just so clear, all of that information coming through. I just have this image of like standing there and looking at the sky and the tree line, and it was a pretty clear moment.
Well, that's awesome and inspiring to hear. And then you mentioned like a bit of a cascade of synchronicities since then. What do you think synchronicity is? That's a topic that I'm quite enthralled by.
Ooh, I love that question. Synchronicity is, to me, a combination. I think, how to answer this? What a beautiful thought to even have. Um, feels to me like listening. It's very tied to listening and tuning into a greater field. It's like surrendering the smaller self and allowing life to move us, but not in a very haphazard way, but like it requires our intention. Like my intention is to lead with my heart in life. And then we start paying attention to like what is coming up in life. It feels like a lot of trust that intention has been received. And then there's like a ripple, and then we are just tuning into what ripples back. I guess is kind of how it feels. And we can like say yes to the offerings of like the ripples or not. You know, someone might be like, hey, come to this event. It's all about the heart, you know, and we could be like, oh, I'm too busy. Or we could be like, oh, this sounds like it could be related to my intention, you know, and then we just, or we might not even know, we just trust and we just follow. I think that's where the intuition is key, because we might get a gut feeling of like, this doesn't make any sense, but something in me is saying to go this way. And so I feel like maybe synchronicity is the way I use that word is maybe that moment of the opportunity showing itself and leading us somewhere, and we follow it and it leads to something else. It's like this little mycelial network that we follow and get on. I don't know if any of that made sense, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think synchronicity is something beyond words, but I definitely appreciate your wonderings around them. That
it's like
topic.
a word collage about synchronicity.
Yeah, and then on that note, because it does, I'm like thinking about a formula. It's like Ayla's formula for synchronicity was committing to breaking through her fear of doing something that she loved as a child, and then synchronicities came.
Yeah,
do you
like,
have
yeah.
Other creative constraints where you're staying tuned in to be able to listen to those or seeing those? Like, do you wake up every morning and make sure you do your breath work? I'm kind of curious. I say the breath work too, because I would love to hear about the inspiration for the song Breathe.
Yeah, it's called Breath I Breathe. And yeah, it's, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. Maybe I'll get to that next. But the first question, I want to make sure I understand it, is about personal practices, or more just like staying connected to that listening system, or personal objects?
Yeah, I think about
things.
So different. I have different super creative friends in my life that have been on the show, and some of them seem to have like specific practices. Like if I remember JP and living with him some, that guy would wake up in the morning and he would sit in front of his like journal to take notes for like an hour every morning, amongst other things. And then I think I was trying to ask Trevor Hall about it, and he was more saying to me, well, I don't know. I just take a drive and listen.
Yeah.
So his seemed a lot less structured, where JP seems a lot more structured. I'm wondering if you have any, and for myself, like every morning, probably like 600 out of the last 625 days, I make sure to do breath work.
That's great. Wonderful.
And that seems to definitely get me tuned more into the frequency of synchronicity. I would say that's part of the reason I became pretty addicted to it, actually. It just seems like my life is better when I make sure to breathe.
Yeah.
Consciously, not just unconsciously. So I don't know if you have anything, like you take a walk in the woods every morning, or before you get out of bed, you do this or that. I'm curious.
Yeah, I like movement, both as a practice, like literally, like moving is really good for me. Dance, yoga, all like gardening, all the forms, walking, hiking, swimming in the river, like all the forms of movement are really helpful. Particularly yoga and dancing. And movement's really part of me in that I like having variety each day. So I wouldn't say I do the same thing every day, but I definitely most days take some time. Lately it's been yoga and breath work and some meditation, and that has felt, I can feel it rippling into the the clarity of myself very directly. And so I think I'm in process of getting addicted to that actually right now as a practice. But, some mornings I also have a tea practice. I really love, I love the amazing tea pu'er. And I was given a beautiful handmade clay pot from Japan, and just the practice of mindfulness with pouring tea and drinking tea. And I also use it as an opportunity to tune in with myself and my day. And often the pu'er has this kind of both grounding and stimulating effect. So I'll like chart out my whole day, and it's just this clarity moment. And some mornings it's like I only have half an hour. Some mornings I'm like, it's a 2-hour deep dive if I can. But I don't always have that kind of time. But yeah, when it's available, I take it. When I have it, I try to take that opportunity, because I know that centering, whether it's yoga or breath work or meditation or mindfulness practice of any kind, it is going to absolutely ripple into every part of my day and actually make my day so much more productive, but also magical in the sense that synchronicity will, like, I'm making space essentially, right? When we meditate or when we do breath work, we're making space. And then I think life gets to come more into that space. We're not so filled with the thoughts and the ego kind of worries and things. Like, allows for more magic to happen, feels like.
Yeah, and I also hear you, by the way, for pu'er tea. That's probably my favorite tea, actually.
Yeah.
And if I'm not drinking coffee, that would probably be my next thing to go to. I love pu'er.
I love pu'er. I love mate and pu'er.
Me too. Mate is probably right there, second to pu'er. And then I also, yeah, we could go down so many different herbs and such, but I'll get
all of the plants.
It's good to know that you make a mindful practice out of drinking pu'er tea. I'd love to join you one day. That's one of my favorite ways to hang out, actually, is I've been to certain tea houses and drink pu'er, and I was like, this is where it's at.
Oh, let's do that. That sounds so fun.
I remember I'm thinking of one in Northern California. There was one in Santa Cruz that did a really good job. I forget, maybe you know the name of the tea house, but I had a lot of fun drinking pu'er there. That's for sure.
I don't know it, but now I'll have to look it up. I love tea houses and I love drinking tea with people. So fun. Yes.
And then Breath I Breathe.
Yeah. So that song is, it's a song that is really, it came from a place of feelings, like very somatically and in my heart, a truth, a certain truth for this experience, which is that I'm made of all the same elements as the earth, and there's not a difference. And I believe that we are fractals of each other and fractals of the world and mirrors in a way. And so what we do to the earth, we literally do to ourselves. We're not separate from anything. And so that song really comes from that place of both thanking the earth but really acknowledging, like, your body lays all around me. May I walk gently upon your limbs, and my body lays all around me. May I be beauty, my life, your limb. And that one is really like, I am walking on myself. May I be beauty, because I'm an extension of all of this. So may I put beauty into all that is, really, and take care of it, because I'm taking care of myself. And the more I take care of myself, the more I'm taking care of the planet. And I think a lot about our nervous systems too right now, like, really on behalf of the planet, how can we take care of our nervous systems? Kind of goes back to that first topic of putting down media. Doing media fasting is really important right now, and calming, drinking different herbal teas that calm our nervous system, because I think then we can really be of benefit to the planet, and the planet's nervous system is, I imagine, pretty rattled because there's a lot of, pillaging and plundering still happening. And so, yeah, it's like it goes both directions. So that's a lot of where that song came from. And just reminding ourselves always that our breath comes from this planet, and we would just not live. We will not live if we don't take care of everything. Yeah.
It's a beautiful expression. And where is the best? Where do you usually suggest people check out your music in case this is the first time they're hearing of you?
Well, wherever your place of choice is, I suppose. It's on YouTube. The music video is on YouTube now, and then of course Spotify and Apple, Bandcamp, and on my website too. Is all the links are there. Can find their choice there. And the website's just my name, elanerio.com.
Awesome. And we'll include all that in the show notes as well. And then I guess I can't help myself. I'm going to ask you about other herbs. You mentioned how it might be a good idea to start getting in touch with different herbal teas that calm our nervous system. Do you have other ones you would like to talk about, or any other favorites?
Well, the ones that I love are